3 states have legalized online gambling, but if you don't live in New Jersey, Delaware, or Nevada, you can't place a bet, so you won't be cashing in anytime soon unless you look up and across the pond, because while the rest of the U.S. holds its cards, Europe is taking the house. There are ways to make money in online gambling. You're about to learn how. Joining me now is A.G. Burnett, chairman of the Nevada State Gaming Control Board, and Nicolo Masi, CEO of Glue Mobile, an online gaming company. A.G., let me start with you. The estimates are kind of all over the board for how much online gambling could generate. $3 million in Nevada, almost $4 million in Delaware. New Jersey is saying $850 million. Why do you think? Why are you so low by comparison?
Well, I think our interstate or our intrastate gaming has only looked at the players that we've currently licensed right now. And the figures are really pie in the sky based upon the state's population, which is 2.5 million. And then also any visitors that come to Las Vegas or Reno who wish to play poker. But I think that no one really knows for sure what those numbers are. I've seen estimates for the United States upwards of $400 million.
What do you think about other states allowing the interstate gambling? I mean, where do we stand on that? How likely is it? I mean, it's such a game changer.
Yeah, I think all of the states that already have casinos or land-based gaming are probably looking at it right now. That's just a guess. We've been looking at it for over 10 years, and this has been a long process for us. But I think of the 48 states that do have some form of gambling, whether it's tribal gaming or casino resort-style gaming, they're looking at this space. They're looking at this segment because, as you mentioned earlier, this has been something that's been going on in Europe for a long time.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Nicolo, I mean, obviously you're invested overseas. Is part of that because you don't have high hopes for what's going to happen with online gambling here in the U.S.?
Well, it's a case of, ultimately getting your timing right, and we do have high hopes for the U.S., but obviously this has been going a while in places like the UK and a couple other countries, and we want to make sure that we prove out the kinds of business models we will ultimately, hopefully, be able to employ in a number of states, if not all of them in the U.S., in Europe first.
Yeah, what are your plans like to invest here? I mean, what's the time horizon like? Are you pursuing that actively?
Absolutely. We're taking a multi-pronged approach to thinking about how a free-to-play gaming company such as Glue can ultimately look to expand and fundamentally build games that I believe will have bigger, what we call lifetime value per player.
Yeah.
And that's the opportunity we see with real money mechanisms, no matter which jurisdiction we're talking about.
A.G., I mean, a lot of this depends on, a lot of the success of the model has to do with how you tax it, of course. I mean, that's always true in business. A tax is a gambling license. I know it's $500,000 to get a license in Nevada. Is that a steep barrier to entry? How does that change the landscape?
Yeah, no, we don't think it's a steep barrier to entry at all. And what that is for the resort casino that actually obtains the license. The other entities that come in for the B2B or B2C service provider's license don't have to pay that fee. So the only fees have to be paid by the operators, the casino resort again, and then the manufacturers or distributors, which is a little bit less. That's it right now, and our tax remains just as it is for land-based casinos, 6 3/4%.
Do you think it would make sense to make that even lower to get more people into the game? So that at least it's a bigger area and you have more customers that are involved. At least at first, would it make sense to make it lower?
Well, we've got a significant amount of market entrance right now. We've done over 13 licenses for the major operators, and those are the major players. So I think we've seen anyone and everyone who's going to come into the market as far as the B2B or B2C provider and the operator. But that doesn't speak to the poker liquidity, which is based on the players themselves.
Nicolo, what would you say to people about getting involved in investing in this space? What's the best way to do it?
Well, there's certainly a number of different approaches. We are, we're hedging a little bit because we're never sure exactly the timing or what forms of real money gambling will be allowed in games and what will be appropriate based on the kinds of audiences we've built. But ultimately, I do believe that Nevada is going to be leading the charge here, probably for companies like ourselves that are looking at more than one mechanism of real money experience.
Yeah, no, that's interesting because they are complementary as opposed to people thinking, that it's sort of like self-cannibalizing the business, but it's not true. It sort of feeds on itself. Guys, thanks to both of you for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.
Interesting
Bye-bye.
stuff. And speaking of gambling, our very